We are 11 days into this war with Iran, but I want to show you some key numbers and headlines that we're following today. The U.S. and its allies have struck more than 5,000 targets in Iran. That's according to U.S. Central Command. And our CBS News data team looked into specific targets and found that the combined forces have struck 50 Iranian ships. Other targets include 30 military bases and institutions, 11 government leadership compounds, 4 energy facilities, and 2 nuclear research labs. Now, one of the stated goals for this war is to destroy all of Iran's ballistic missiles. CBS News found that 23 launch sites have been destroyed, including at least 200 launchers. This new video, uploaded by an Iranian news agency, appears to show a Tomahawk cruise missile striking a facility next to a girls' school. Now, multiple weapons experts told CBS News the United States was the only country involved in the conflict at this specific time, and that was also known to have this kind of weapon. This missile is made by American defense contractor Raytheon, which also sells it to allied countries like Japan and Australia. As many as 175 people were killed in that strike, most of them schoolgirls between the ages of 7 and 12 years old. Now, this video shows a mass grave being prepared for victims of that attack. Sources told CBS News that a preliminary assessment found that the U.S. is, quote, likely responsible for the strike on that school. A person briefed on the preliminary intelligence told CBS News the school may have been targeted by mistake, possibly due to the use of outdated intelligence, which wrongly identified the location as still being part of an Iranian military installation. Here's what President Trump told reporters when asked about that attack.
I think it's something that I was told is under investigation, but Tomahawks are used by others, as you know. Numerous other nations have Tomahawks. They buy them from us. But I will certainly, whatever the report shows, I'm willing to live with that report.
Now, Iran has responded to the U.S. military campaign with attacks of its own. At least 12 countries in the Middle East have been hit, with U.S. and Israeli interests being heavily targeted. 18 U.S. and allies military installations have been hit so far, including Prince Sultan Air Base and a U.S. Air Force base in Saudi Arabia, where a U.S. soldier died in that attack. 8 civilian locations like hotels, 6 airports, and 6 energy facilities and vessels have also been hit. Now, in a Pentagon briefing today, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the U.S. is winning in the war with Iran and says its leaders are desperate and scrambling.
We're crushing the enemy in an overwhelming display of technical skill and military force. We will not relent until the enemy is totally and decisively defeated. But we do so on our timeline and at our choosing.
Joining us now is retired U.S. Army Major and military analyst Mike Lyons. Great to see you. Secretary Hegseth said today would be the most intense day of U.S. strikes inside Iran. Iran is launching ballistic missiles and drones in attacks against the U.S. allies in the Gulf, we know. What does this tell you about Iran's capabilities as the war continues on?
Well, I listened to General Kane today as well say that their capability was degraded, and degraded is just not destroyed. They started out with a very large number of ballistic missiles, tens of thousands in some cases. And so while we can say 90% is destroyed, it doesn't mean that there's still not a large number remaining. I think that the United States will continue to go after multiple military targets, both IRGC as well as these missile launchers, which really provide the greatest threat. We saw them launch about 12 strikes yesterday, and they'll continue to use drone swarms. So the bottom line is their military is degraded, but it's surely not destroyed.
Mike, James Laporta with CBS News has new reporting today that Iran is taking steps to deploy mines in the narrow passage of the Strait of Hormuz. The president has said he's thinking about taking over the strait. Is that even possible for the U.S. military to take over that passage, or what are the other options out there?
Well, technically, the state is controlled by Oman and the nation of Iran, and so for us to take over is kind of one thing. But from a military perspective, we can try to keep the mines from landing there and possibly use it to escort ships that come through it. We've done that before. We've reflagged tankers back in the 80s and brought them through the straits. But the challenge is it's the IRGC that controls those mines, and while we're projecting the Navy is being destroyed in Iran, the IRGC has small boats and has asymmetric warfare capability that could make that very difficult in order for us to protect the ships that are going through there. So whether they try to mine it or not remains to be seen. Right now, we need to try to get it open as soon as possible. Only a very few ships have made it in the past few days, but the United States will make it a mission at some point to make sure that straits are open.
Yeah, it's critical for the world's oil supply. The White House says they're discussing sending troops to retrieve Iran's uranium, which, as we know, is critical material used in nuclear weapons. That would mean boots on the ground. What would that operation entail?
We will eventually have boots on the ground there. They won't be large formations, the 1st Armored Division and Bradleys and tanks and that alike, but we'll have to put people on the ground. But when you think about trying to recover that nuclear material, it's about a ton's worth, right? 1,000 pounds of it, 60% enriched uranium. I can't even get my head around how difficult that mission would be. You'd have to bring nuclear scientists. You'd have to bring special ops. You first of all have to find out where specifically it is. We think it's in Isfahan. We think it's deep in one of those tunnels there. But that would be a very, very difficult mission in order to logistically get all those men and equipment in there. And then secure that material in a way that doesn't damage the soldiers that are there. That's difficult material to handle. You have to again have scientists there and then get it out. So really, really tough mission, a commando mission that I haven't seen, that we haven't seen, and the like, and likely won't be executed during the time of combat.
Yeah, and I'm curious, Mike, looking at all the different elements to this war, how long do you think this is going to last? We're getting kind of conflicting reports from the Trump administration. What does it look like to you?
Yeah, no question that the Trump administration is definitely overpromising at some level. I'm listening to General Kane, and I think he's being very measured in his words with regard to how the situation's going. The Trump administration, I think now, is looking for regime compliance. They're not necessarily. We're not going to get regime change from the air in particular, but regime compliance. Find somebody inside of Iran that's going to go along with what the United States wants. You heard the president say we're down to the 2nd and 3rd layers of that right now. That'll be more telling. If the administration can find an individual inside of Iran that says we surrender, we get the compliance we want, then it'll shorten. But we've had bombing campaigns before that have lasted weeks and sometimes months. I think that's on the table.
Yeah, I mean, how likely do you think that is, though, given that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's son is now the leader of the Iranian regime? Is change really going to happen here?
Well, it's likely that Israel will target that new leader, and they'll continue to do that. It's illegal for the United States to do that. But it just, again, remains to be seen if the materials can if you get the internet, for example, inside of Iran, get the people communicating, get them organizing, that's really the only way this revolution can take place. It's not going to be parachuted in from above. There's no leader that's going to come in to have the legitimacy to do that. And we just have to keep taking away their military assets, and so they can't attack their own people and attack us.
I mean, we know that Israel and the U.S. have been in lockstep with this ongoing war with Iran. I'm curious if you feel, though, that their ultimate goals are aligned.
Well, Israel's been a difficult partner. They attacked that energy facility. 4 of the targets were depot where they stored oil, but one of them was an actual pump, and that's problematic. That's going after the infrastructure. That creates an environmental hazard, all the things that go along with that. I think the administration was not happy that Israel did that. But going after, they're all legitimate military targets because they are vehicles of the IRGC. But Israel has been a challenging partner. The whole target list itself is something that has to continue to be cleared. But right now, we do have 2 very competent militaries executing on this mission. So let's leave it at that.
I was curious to hear your reaction to the Trump administration's reaction to the fact that Russia, and Vladimir Putin specifically, is helping Tehran follow or locate U.S. interests and Israeli interests. Were you surprised that the U.S. wasn't, frankly, apoplectic about that, given what they're trying to do between Russia and Ukraine right now?
Well, Russia is an enemy, and so is China, and we should not be surprised by any action that Russia has. And I think we have to measure our responses, stay focused. And here, sure, it's not an ideal situation, but we should expect that China would help its proxy, and we should expect Russia to help its proxy. And at this point, we have to just do better. We have to just make sure that our military and tactical surprise remain the same. But we should not be surprised by any actions that Russia does.
But you don't think that we should waste time being angry at them when there's a greater goal ahead? Is that what you're saying?
Right, and Russia is fighting its own war of attrition right now and losing badly. Their only way out is China to help them. China's energy security is actually threatened right now, which is going on. They've no more oil coming from Venezuela, no more oil coming from the Middle East. China will have to buy oil from Russia, who will then use that money against Ukraine to try to buy Iranian drones, but they're not making Iranian drones anymore. So again, this vicious circle within that proxy of those three countries I think it's slowly crumbling. We got to focus on the mission at hand, which is Iran.
Mike Lyons, always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.